On December 1st, 1970, Virgil Fox gave the most unusual organ concert ever. His manager Richard Torrance booked Virgil in the Mecca of rock and roll, the Fillmore East, and then proceeded to advertise the concert through all the normal channels that the Fillmore used to advertise its big rock concerts. Virgil's concert would be called Heavy Organ. A then state-of-the-art electronic organ built by the Rogers Organ Company was set up on stage, and a typical rock concert-style light show was rigged. On the night of the concert, the usual Fillmore East crowd showed up and filled the seats of the smoky auditorium. The Fillmore's lighting technicians were all stoned and ready. Virgil took the stage wondering, what in the world was this young audience, more accustomed to the music of Jefferson Airplane or the Grateful Dead? What were they going to think of the music of Johann Sebastian Bach played on the organ? Well, Virgil started to play, and his rhythmic, expressive playing drew an immediate response. His rhinestone-studded shoes, flashing in the theater lights as he played long pedal solos, drew shouts and cheers. There was thunderous applause after each and every piece. Heavy Organ was a smashing success. Now, full credit has to be given to Richard Torrance and, of course, to concert promoter Bill Graham. But such a concert could have only succeeded with the towering talent of Virgil Fox. The live recording of Heavy Organ became a best-selling album. Not just a best-selling classical music album. It became a best-selling album, period. Now, to critics and, of course, the classical music establishment, Heavy Organ was an artistic disaster. You know, traditionalists always seem to want to keep some sort of imagined purity in the arts. But to Virgil, the organ purists were relegating the organ to the museum, setting it aside as some quaint relic from the past. To Virgil, organ music should be red-blooded, gutsy, filled with emotion, and above all, timeless. Heavy Organ would become a regular nationwide tour. Through the 70s, Virgil Fox and the Rogers touring organ known as Black Beauty traveled millions of miles and played in venues that were normally reserved for big rock concerts. Heavy Organ concerts were always accompanied by an elaborate light show, and they were mostly attended by a young audience. At one point, Virgil included the piece Fugue à la Gigue. And in this piece, the organist is quite literally required to dance the gigue on the pedals in order to play the line correctly. And when Virgil's feet began dancing on those pedals, he heard hands come together. Dun 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 dun. Curious. He turned his head and saw that the audience was on its feet, dancing a delightful gigue to a fugue by Johann Sebastian Bach. In the late 70s, Heavy Organ concerts continued to thrill audiences with intoxicating music and inspiring light shows by luminarist David Snyder. And at that same time, Virgil was actually starting to gain some acceptance from the stodgy classical music establishment. Now, Virgil, of course, was at heart a flashy showman, but he was first and foremost a great artist. More and more, Virgil was being booked to play concert halls and to perform with symphony orchestras. And even the critics began to take serious note of Virgil's tremendous virtuosity. So, in the late 70s, it seemed that Virgil was reaching ever higher heights. He made some of his most important recordings at this time, including 2 live concerts recorded for television in Tokyo, Japan with the NHK Symphony Orchestra. but a trip to the doctor would reveal devastating news. Virgil had an aggressive form of prostate cancer. Cancer treatments in the 70s were downright barbaric compared to what we know today. First, there was an aggressive surgery followed by radiation treatments. Now, it wasn't the chemotherapy we think of today. Virgil was treated with the fiercely radioactive cobalt-60. The surgery, the treatments, and the continued progress of Virgil's cancer left him in an increasingly weakened state. But Virgil being Virgil, he soldiered on. He continued to give concerts and make recordings. Virgil was even called on to help design the massive pipe organ for the Crystal Cathedral, then under construction in Garden Grove, California. Of course, he was booked to play its first concert. The dream of playing a huge pipe organ of his own design lifted Virgil's spirits and encouraged him to keep going. But inside Virgil, the cancer was growing and spreading. Additional treatments, some experimental, were tried in an effort to gain the upper hand, but the cancer just wouldn't quit. Just as Virgil reached the peak of his artistic power, his physical body began to fail. Next time, in the finale of my little series, Who Was Virgil Fox?, we're going to take a look at two of his most important concerts, his return to the Riverside Church and his final performance with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.